screen because I'm such an old hand at it now. And apparently we're live. Oh, look, we've already got some comments. That's very nice. Hello, Susan. So we are live. Very big welcome on this Monday to Nick Quantrill and Kate Helm, who I hope, are you both alert?
Well, very alert these days.
We need more of them.
We need more. Oh, look, lots of people. Hi, Sven, as well, who's Sven from Hamburg. We've got our tea. Now, Kate is here because she, this very Thursday, is publishing a new book, which we're going to talk about. And obviously, it's a fantastic week to be publishing a book. I'm publishing a book as well this Thursday. Nick's here mainly to talk about Hull Noir, which should have been next month, but for various reasons is not happening as it should do, is it, Nick?
No, that's right. We took the decision about a month ago to pull the plug on it for this June. Just because obviously the usual factors around coronavirus. So we are very fortunate that we're funded by the Arts Council to put the festival on. So we've managed, with their permission and help, to move it to next March. So that's kind of the main news in that respect. So a lot of festivals obviously really struggled in terms of moving the dates. There's a lot of financial risks involved, but we've been very fortunate that we've not lost a huge amount of money doing that, and we can kind of largely roll the program forward into next March. And we had some good news this week that we managed to get some emergency funding from the Arts Council to kind of bridge the gap between the two dates. And we're going to make a short film based on the work of Ted Lewis, who was one of our prompts for our festival. I mean, I don't know if people particularly know about Ted Lewis. You say to people, he wrote the novel Jack's Return Home, and everybody kind of looks at you and like goes, "Who's that?" And then you say, "Well, it was filmed the following year as Get Carter," and everybody kind of goes, "Well, we know who he is now." Yeah. And obviously, the film as we know it is filmed up in Newcastle with Michael Caine as the Cockney enforcer going back home. But the novel is set around the Humber region. It's set in Scunthorpe and around the banks of the Humber. So we're kind of claiming him back, really. We're saying he's one of these guys, a bit like McIlvanney for the Scots. He's one of these guys who he did something new with the crime form. He took that really hard-boiled American style and set it in Northern England. He kind of put those two things together and made something new that a lot of crime writers nowadays are kind of paying they owe a debt to him, I think, essentially. We just wanted to kind of tell his story through our festival. So we're going to do a little bit of work around his book, Plender, which has just been reissued by No Exit Press. So we've got an actor to read some passages for it, and we've got a filmmaker who's going to go out and film some of the kind of some fitting backdrops around the area, around Hull and the Humber, which kind of evoke the sense of 1970s East Yorkshire. And we're going to kind of hopefully premiere that with a live event sometime in the summer in the city, if not online, I suspect.
Yeah, who knows? That's great news though, because it's really good that these live things, which we have all stopped, can find new shapes, and we need something to look forward to. Have you lost many live events, Kate?
Not really. I mean, I think it happened before I'd worked out kind of quite what I was doing. So luckily not, but I kind of probably would have got together with some friends to celebrate the book coming out on Thursday, but I'll be doing that virtually instead.
Yeah, same really. Tell us about your new book, The House Chair. It's coming out on Thursday. Is it's kind of locked room book. It's I've gotten hidden you behind the credits there. I've got to look, there's a cover. Isn't that not good? There's one behind your left shoulder, but there's another one now on screen. Lovely cover.
Thank you.
And the house, it's not just any old house, is it, in The House Share?
No. So this was totally inspired by a lot of my books are inspired by stuff I read, and this was totally inspired by an article I read about this whole new co-living trend, which is not just your ordinary flat share or house share that kind of any of us who are past that stage would recognise, but it's in a really funky space. It's kind of like a halls of residence for grown-ups, which I actually think would be a great idea generally. So they're typically in big cities, funky building in a place that you would never be able to afford to live in unless you had a tiny room of your own, but then some really good shared space. So it gave me a format to have a heck of a lot of fun with all of the things you dream of, but also some of those kind of trendy, cool things. So your honesty gin bar, your kind of VR games, your obviously a roof terrace. So it's set in Bermondsey in London, which again is, you know, one of those places that's gone from being full of empty warehouses to being full of warehouses packed with hipsters.
Yeah.
So they've all got their Honesty Gin bar on the roof terrace. They're doing communal yoga. They've got emotional support animals. They have got a endless supply of kimchi. So it's the perfect place if you are unable to afford that, but you want to live in central London. But is it? Is it a place to die for? So my two characters have both got reasons that they're desperate to leave where they are. They get accepted through a really rigorous process to make sure they'll fit in. And of course, the nightmare is just beginning.
I love the idea. And you put hipsters in there as well. I'm going to hide your cover so I can show some nice comments that are coming up as well on this. Oh, hold on. Sheila says we're all frozen. Well, we haven't frozen. It's your laptop, Sheila. And Chris Collins says house share is.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Chris. You got to read an early preview, so.
And Callie Taylor says, hi, Kate. Hi, Nick. Hi, William. And Callie Taylor was on this. Yes, is a brilliant writer who was on this thing some point in the mists of time, because it seems to have been going on forever now, but will be coming to a close this Thursday for now. I'll probably do some more, but at the end of the day, these are the last people that I can have on before I go completely bonkers. But the idea that, I mean, that's a brilliant idea, and you've got hipsters you can take the piss off. Would you go and live in a co-living community yourself?
You know what? I think I would. I'm not sure I'd want it to be open-ended. I think I was just intrigued because you think about all of those characters coming together, and obviously they've been screened to a certain extent, but you know, you don't know enough about them. What I really liked about a lot of the real life co-living places that are set up in places like London and New York, and I think there's some in Australia as well, is that they have all these communal activities. And I am a bit of a joiner. I do like all of those things. I am an evening class obsessed. Okay, so every September, I'm desperate to learn something new. I'm normally really bad at most of it, but they have all of that stuff. So I love the fact they've got all these yoga sessions, and they have these drink sessions and quizzes and all this kind of thing. And I love group dynamics anyway. I'm quite, I moved house a lot when I was a little kid. So my parents were constantly moving, went to about 13 different schools. And I think that's where my interest in group dynamics comes from, always being slightly on the outside. I think a lot of writers are a bit in that boat, that introvert of wanting to understand what's making people tick, partly because we're a bit rubbish at it ourselves. I certainly am. And so I think I would love that side of things. And you know, who doesn't like an Honesty Gin bar, really?
You mentioned that a few times. I was actually looking at articles on co-living places in London and actually around there, and I was reading one today, and it had the person who organised all the events. They said, yes, our most popular event was the ceramic dildo making workshop. So, you know, that should obviously would get in somewhere in Soho if you're living co-living. But you are, I mean, I was reading a tweet today from Jane Friedman, these are the publisher of Hot Sheet, said over 80% of published authors stop after 3 books. About 10% make it to 6 books, and about 5% make it to 12. I reckon you're probably in the 5% there, Kate, are you?
Yeah, no, I think I'm on book. I think this might be book 21.
That's amazing, isn't it? Because Kate writes under various names: Kate Harrison, Kate Helm, and you've got a new book coming out. It's probably next year under Eva Carter, which is going for women's fiction more, if that's what I'm about to say. How do you manage to keep these various identities on the go all the time?
I'm not sure how successful I am. None of them have really been top secret. And I do get confused. I get confused about where I should be posting, and, you know, on Facebook and various other places. I think it came really, so one of the big things that I did about 6 years ago was by accident write some diet books, and they became quite successful. And as a result of that, it meant that if you Google my name, my real name, which is Kate Harrison, on Amazon and all the other book selling sites, you're just going to get the diet books. So that means if you're after a diet book, you're going to get confused because you don't necessarily want a thriller. And if you want a thriller, you're going to end up with recipes for cauliflower rice and a description of how my back fat used to be a lot worse than it is now. So the two audiences are not necessarily compatible. Right. And that's really why we've ended up going down that route. But you know what? It's all an experiment. I've no idea if it'll work, especially with the new one, because the advantage of being Kate Harrison and Kate Helm is the same first name. And Helm just came because, like you, I live in Brighton. So I love Brighton. I was looking for a surname. Bright Helmstone was the original name of Brighton. So that kind of worked. I was thinking about Bright, wrong for crime fiction.
Yeah.
I thought about Stone, and actually I think that's my perfect DI name. Don't you think? DI Kate Stone?
Yeah.
Or DCI, it sounds somehow.
There might be one already, in fact.
Yeah, I think there might be. So, you know, went with that. Eva will be a whole new story because that's a different name, first name. So it's going to get confusing.
And presumably you have to practice the different signatures. This is going to be an interesting one. With the obviously.
Yeah, I have kind of, I think because it's got the same H, I have almost signed the Kate Helm books wrong sometimes, but you know, nobody really minds.
But it is out on Thursday. It's the house share, and I'm hearing it's getting a really good buzz about it. So please head over to whichever place you buy your books from, and find the house share. I'll put the cover up again before we go. Back to Nick for a while. Tell me about, you know, how Noir started. That's like 3 years ago. Was it 3 years ago now?
Yeah, 2017. We had our first event, November 17, as part of the official program for Hull being City of Culture that year. So it was officially funded. It was officially branded as part of the overall year, which was a long process. I think the first time we actually spoke about Hull Noir as a thing was probably about 2012, when Hull was shortlisted to be the UK City of Culture for 2017.
Yeah.
And at that stage, it was just literally a crime festival. That was the idea that went into the bid pack. And then it was kind of, as I came into contact with Nick Quantrill, who's a fellow crime writer in the Humber, he was researching Ted Lewis's life at the time. He's been researching it ever since I've known him for the last 10 years, and it's kind of finally germinated in a book, Getting Carter, which is Ted Lewis's biography, which was published about 2 years ago now by No Exit Press. And we just realised that we had a story to tell, because a big part of the City of Culture programme was to tell these untold stories of the city. And we had this guy, Ted Lewis, who'd written Get Carter, who'd spent his formative years in Hull. He came to the art school as a teenager. He wrote novels set in the city before he went off to London. And then he kind of worked for the Beatles, he works with Doctor Who, and he writes his amazing gangster novel, which changes the genre, effectively. So we had a story to tell. So that was kind of the starting point for the festival, really. And we put it on November 17, as you say. And then after that, we kind of struggled to get the funding to bring it back again in 18 and 19. And we finally get the application right, we get the money, and then coronavirus comes along and kind of kicks us in the teeth and says, you're not putting it back on. So, yeah, it feels like it's been a long process for two festivals, but, you know, we want to do it right. And we want to try and do something a little bit different to other festivals at the same time. So getting our kind of story straight and getting the funding has been a process.
Yeah, and I think it was odd because Hull City of Culture was such a successful event, and obviously Hull Noir are part of that sort of thing. And then you really wonder how the follow up of that happens. And I think it's really important this picks up again and does something else for the city, because Hull's had a lot of tough times, really, hasn't it?
I mean, it has, yeah. I mean, when I first started writing, Hull was the reigning UK crap town. And then I kind of put my next book out with the UK City of Culture. So we've been on this amazing journey as a city from the absolute pits to the best sort of city in the country, seemingly. But yeah, I think a big part of it was there's always been a lot of creativity in Hull, you know, particularly in the poetry scene. When you look at, you know, the influence of people like Larkin and Andrew Marvel and Andrew Motion and things like that. And there's a really thriving contemporary scene of art in the city, but it needed that kind of attention to draw out, I think, you know, that little spotlight putting on it and saying Hull has value, and that kind of draws in the national media, and it just changed the game for a year, really. And the challenge, I think, as a city and an art scene has been keeping it going beyond that, and that's been a tough challenge because there's not been an awful lot of money to do that.
No, I think it's a classic thing. It's like, to me, there's very little point in doing the City of Culture stuff unless you work out what the next 3 or 4 years are going to do. And I think it was a real classic thing because Hull put in so much to that. You know, everybody in Hull seemed to get involved, and it was perfectly done. And then it was just like, anyway. But you know, you're obviously. I'm sorry, I'm hiding you behind again. There, Kate. You're obviously very. I mean, like, it's not just the city that you talk about for Hull Noir, it's a big part of your own books as well. Nick writes the Joe Geraghty thrillers series, has another one coming out this summer. From Fahrenheit, we talked about Fahrenheit before on this, great little independent, brilliant at crime. Tell us about the series and what got you started on that.
Yeah, the series was, well, I wrote, like everybody, I wrote a novel that just has to stay in the drawer forevermore, never to be seen by anybody else. And it was a police novel, you know, and I think people who write police novels like yourself, you have to find something really interesting and different to kind of carry them. And the one I wrote just didn't have that. So I started scouting around thinking, what else can I do? And I just hit upon this idea of a private investigator. I like the idea that it's something we think of as being an American concept, really, but I just thought, what could I do with that idea if I put it into a fairly modern UK city? How would that work in a northern city like Hull? So he's kind of a guy in a small office in the old town of Hull, seemingly starting with these sort of small crimes which sort of spiral outwards into bigger cases of corruption and or murder and all the good stuff, basically. So yeah, I like the idea of having a guy who can go and knock on any door in the city. You might not get through it, but I like the idea that you can kind of go to the top of the city and the bottom of the city at the same time. So yeah, I've just really kind of taken this idea of taking a private investigator and pushing it into a different direction that you don't often see. So yeah, that became the starting point, really.
And it's totally not. I wanted to ask you where Quantrill comes from, because it's a name. You know, there aren't many of you, are there, Quantrills?
No, that's true. It's my grandfather's name. He came from Norfolk, but he was sort of taken up to Hull for training for World War II, and that's where I met my grandma. And then he settled in the area. So it's a name I think you find more commonly in Norfolk than you would anywhere else in Hull. The only other interaction I've had with the name is I did a book signing. I think it was in Scarborough or Leeds somewhere. And a guy kind of came marching up to me asking to know if I was related to the Quantrill Raiders in the American Civil War. And I think they were the bad guys as far as I can make out. But he had a massive big family tree and he wanted me to sort of slot my name into it somewhere. And it was a little bit scary. It was a little bit in my face about the whole thing. But,
Quantrill Rovers?
The Quantrill Raiders.
Raiders? That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think there's a film on the film, yeah. But yeah, it is an unusual name. There's only our family in Hull, I think, who carry it, essentially.
So how are you finding writing, both of you? I mean, I can see you've already got a challenge, Nick, because looking behind you, you seem to have a child in the house. I have
got a child in the house, yeah. But I'm sat in the makeshift classroom at the moment. So my daughter's 8, so as you can see behind me, she's doing a lot of drawing at the moment. So yeah, I think as a writer, it's not changed an awful lot because, you know, obviously we're spending a lot of time at home anyway. Yeah. But trying to work it around my wife's job as a teacher and my daughter's sort of needs and so on, and trying to get her to take our daily amount of state-approved exercise every day. Yeah, that dynamic of having an empty house to a full house has been a bit of a strange one, but I think it's become the new normal now for the time being. So we're doing okay.
Kate, but the book prior to this, the one that came out last year, was a book called The Secrets You Hide, which I went to a very great launch for up in Harrogate, because you had a court artist there. And it was a lovely book as well, because it has, your central character is a court artist. And but it also it has a kind of slightly supernatural element. And it seems to be quite common in your books. Your books aren't very easily contained, are you? Do you have ideas and they run away from you or things like that? Because they don't, you know, people say all about the psychological fiction thing. It doesn't quite fit in the box, which to my mind is a great thing. I love books which are just full of all that creativity. But is that something that, do they run away from you, or you just have that kind of imagination to start with?
They do run away with me a lot, yeah, and I find that difficult. I think I am in some ways a bit of a nightmare for publishers, because my entire the books that I've written have been kind of romantic comedies, psychological thrillers. The suspense, the kind of courtroom artist has got this sort of vision aspect to it, although it's actually really grounded in reality, but you don't know that until halfway. Another thing that makes it really hard to promote. I think that I'm always setting myself puzzles. I was the same when I had a proper job, when I worked in television, and before that in journalism, and I never really wanted to climb the ladder. Apart from anything else, I am a hopeless manager. I can't manage teams. I can barely manage myself. And so I never really enjoyed doing that stuff. So I just went from job to job. I worked in documentaries and in news and for kids TV and that kind of thing. And I've just gone there. I have an idea and I think, oh, I've never done that before. And of course, that's not really how publishing works. They want you to be writing the same but slightly different each time. I have been lucky with my publishers, and also I've been able to do this names trick, which is a brilliant thing to be able to do as a writer. You can try doing different things under different names. Another fantastic thing about writing, doesn't matter how old you are, what you look like, any of those things, it doesn't matter, because the story is the thing. But quite often I'm putting the kitchen sink in, and I wish I could pull back slightly from that, but it just seems to be the way that I work.
What makes those books though that way, isn't it? I think, I think you said that incredibly true thing. I think it's lovely to find myself working in something where it really doesn't matter who you are, what you look, well, who you are a bit, but what you look like or what age you come at it. It's an extraordinary industry for that. I can remember at a Eakstons a 2 or 3 years ago, I met this 90-year-old who'd just published her first book, and I was being very patronizing to her because she was very old. Turned out she just won some major prize. And I just think that's the great thing about this industry, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? They're not looking at us, despite the fact we have to change our names. I think I'm going to be William Quantrill next. I quite like that.
Yeah, well, we'll swap names, see how it goes for a bit.
Well, Q's a better name than W. W gets put right down the floor on the bottom right, you see. Q, I imagine, right in the middle of the shelf, you see.
Yeah.
Quite a good choice.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I'm always, if you've seen my books in a shop, I'm always next to Ian Rankins. And that's maybe not a bad thing, is it, I think? So
No.
I'm visible in that kind of strange way, maybe.
Andy Hill, not only does he point out that Josie Wales was one of Quantrill's raiders, which I didn't know that, but anyway, he says, ask Nick about the rugby league divisions in Hull, please. And that's obviously, Andy is never necessarily contributing positively to this debate, and I'm sure that...
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing because, in the past, in particular, the rugby league was a massive thing, and it still is a big thing, but it was always driven by the River Hull, which goes right down the middle of the city. So if you went on the trawler boats, I went out to the North Sea fishing, you was on the west side of the river and you would support Hull FC. If you was on the other side of the river and you worked on the docks as a fish came in, you was a Hull Kingston Rover supporter. There was always this really rich division in the city. But what I found interesting and tapped into in my first book, Broken Dreams in particular, was this sense of when the housing was demolished and people were then dispersed out around the city, it kind of dilutes that rivalry dilutes in the city, and people start to move around more. I just found that kind of, that sport as a driver for social change was really interesting. So yeah, that kind of those divisions aren't as strong as they maybe were in the city, but it's still a big kind of defining aspect of the city, I would say. Is it ever dangerous writing about Hull in that way? Do people come up to you in parties and say, "Oh, didn't like what you said about this"? Or, do you know what I mean? People take yeah, absolutely. My mum, in particular, she always says, "Can I write something nice about Hull?" And I think, well, I do. But yeah, I think that's the danger in it when you write about a specific place, that people will have an opinion, and that's definitely valid, because the way I experience the city is maybe very different to the way somebody else experiences the city. Yeah. So all I'm trying to do with my books is make sense of the city to myself as I write them, I think, and hopefully I'm trying to do that with truth and with respect to it at the same time. But yeah, I think you would lose something by not writing about a specific place. I gravitate towards writing about a specific place, and when I'm reading, I want to read about specific places too. Right. So now we're in this strange situation as writers. I think we both agree that we can all write in this situation because this is what we do. We write at home. But what are you missing most, both of you? What were you missing most, Kate, to start with at the moment?
The life, I think. The eating out. So I live bang in the centre of Brighton, and which has its up and down sides, but that's one of the reasons I chose to live here. Right, if anyone knows the city, then I live in North Lane, so it's just down from the station, absolutely surrounded by cafes, restaurants, little independent shops. You get to know everyone around. It's blissful. And of course, now it feels like 28 days later the entire time, even though it's a lot longer than 28 days. And it's not just that I miss being able to get out and get a change of scene, or go out and get some fantastic Korean food one day and some Mexican food the next day. It's also just really worrying about all the people behind the shop fronts, and and what will be left. because Brighton, you know, it's got its seedy side, as we know, but that's the charm. It's a place that people come with their stories and on holiday, and you know, I can't bear the idea that it might not be able to be like that for absolutely not just months, for years, you know, and that the people who make the city amazing, an individual might be kind of priced out or not able to carry on with their business. So it's that, I think, I really feel it.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think it's going to be real. I mean, it's going to have to rethink itself yet again. I mean, luckily, it's a place that's got a good track record of rethinking itself. But yeah, how's about you then, Nick?
Yeah, I was missing my reading mojo to start with at the beginning of the lockdown period. I found it really tricky to read contemporary crime. You know, this sense of people just going about their business, going into pubs, having walks, doing this and doing that, all the stuff that we couldn't do anymore. But I think as time has moved on, and I kind of took a bit of a step away and read some historical crime fiction, which kind of really helped sort of just take me out of the current situation a little bit. And I'm finding reading a lot more easier at the moment. But in a wider sense, I miss football terribly, which is really shallow of me, isn't it? I miss going to the matches with my friends and catching up with those and watching the game. You can replicate these things online to an extent, can't you, with Zoom meetings and Zoom quizzes and such like. But just missing friends outside your immediate family, I think, is a tough one.
I came downstairs to find my son watching that career match that was on, the very first match. You know, desperately. It's kind of football's. I miss complete. You know, I'm quite happy without it, but I can quite understand. You know, and that's going to be a really tough one for people, isn't it? I just want to show you a photograph. Just talk about Hull Noir. This is the final event you had at Hull Noir. It's probably very small on people's, but in the middle, that's John Connolly showing us what a fine head of hair he's got, and also the very hirsute Jake Kerridge, who's a critic for the Telegraph. You had a good lineup considering you're starting off straight away.
We did. It was incredible. We got Mark and John to headline our second day of the festival. Martina Cole headlined the previous day. I think one of the big advantages of Hull Noir for us is that we are writers. Essentially, people sort of involved in the book scene, putting on a festival for the writers. So it makes it a bit easier that we can just go to people direct and say, would you like to come to the festival? Rather than having to go through layers of PR and editors and all that type of business. So, I think just because we're very active out there, me, Nick, Nikki still runs a festival with us as well, who works with Spellbound Publicity. We've kind of got presence in London through Nikki, and we've got ourselves up in Hull. So, you know, I think just the fact that we're out there and we're visible means people who maybe was willing to take a bit of a punt on us when we put the festival on, and was willing to travel up and take part on the basis that we wouldn't make too much of a mess of things. So yeah, I think we was, you know, surprised at how easily some of the authors said yes to us, but you know, we wanted to do it as best we could with it. I think Hull being the city of culture at the time was a big thing as well. You could come to our festival in 2017, and if you wanted to take an hour's break, you could go and see the Turner Prize exhibition next door in the Ferrens Art Gallery. You can't say that very often, can you, at a festival? So I think we had a big bump off that city of culture, sort of kudos effectively. But yeah, I mean, we didn't get to the stage of announcing our programme for 2020 because we were holding back a little bit before putting the tickets out because of the situation. But the authors we've got coming along, you know, are just as good as we had previously, I think.
And how will people find out about it? What's the best way for people to find out about it?
Best thing is our website, hullnoir.com. The information we put on there, plus our social media feeds, the usual places, twitter.com/hullnoir, Facebook/hullnoir. We're all on there. Myself, Nick and Nikki, we're always around on Twitter and Facebook. So if you've got a question, just please ask.
It's difficult though, isn't it? I mean, like, you do all the organisational work and now you've got to do it all again because everybody
exactly. I think we're at the stage where we're not even thinking about that at the moment. We're just kind of ignoring that fact we need to start again. But yeah, I think the fact we had a program in place and we had a relationship with the hotel and everything was set, it shouldn't be too bad, I hope. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, that really makes it, those sort of things. Well, it's very nice to see Tammy Cohen in the comments as well. Tammy will be on later this week talking about her new book, which I think is also coming out on Thursday. It's obviously a very good day for books. She may be losing male readers. Sorry, what's that?
I was saying Tammy came to Hull in 2017 as Rachel Rees, so it was nice to see her there.
Great writer, great book too. Yeah. So please, I think it's Wednesday, but I've kind of lost all knowledge of where I am that Tammy will be on. If it's tomorrow, please come tomorrow anyway. But it'd be lovely to see you there. I'm just going to give one more plug to the house share because I actually think I right now, everybody who's watching should go and try and make sure they order that book while they can. There it is.
It even had the diagram. Look, I'm very proud of this.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love that.
Excellent.
That's so good.
Oh, hang on. Hold it up to the camera. Look. The dye factory. It's actually got a little, that's what it's called, the place, the building, the dye factory. Actually got a love a diagram.
I think that's brilliant. I'm jealous. I wanted maps in my books, and my people say, "Oh, you can't have maps in crime books." I said, "Yes, you can." But anyway, it seems very unfair. Later tonight at 6 o'clock, I think it is. Check on for Alex Hawley from Hawley Reviews. We'll be interviewing Cara Hunter, who was on maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago on this. A great and very successful writer. I've put the link in the comments, so find out that. I think it's 6 o'clock on Alex Hawley's Facebook Live. Cara Hunter will also be appearing in a very special project that I'm about to show, which I may be unveiling tomorrow or maybe Wednesday, involving several crime writers. That is a bit sneaky and very, very good and a lot of fun, but I won't tell you what it is now. Anyway, please buy the house share. Please, let's all meet in Hull Noir in next year. I mean, it'd be just, let's all go there and have a really good time. And also see a great city. It's a lovely city, Hull. It's very, it's a surprising place. Nice big wide roads, lovely bridge, and lovely people. It's a great place to visit. So we'll all meet there when we're allowed to meet again. In the meantime, now I'm going to draw this to a close. I like to sort of pull it together by the half-hour mark, and we're about 31 minutes. But listen, thanks so much, Nick. It's brilliant to meet you.
Thank you.
To see you, and it's lovely to see you. It's lovely to see you people and appear inside your houses. So goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, William.
Bye. Thank you for hosting.
Bye.
Bye.